Good morning, everyone. I'm Taylor Vincent. I'm going to be giving a small presentation on secondary mortgage markets, and hopefully you come away with some new knowledge and how to apply it in your life. Really, all of this kind of begins back in the FDR, Great Depression era. Banks at that time were running a 7-year loan that you needed 20 to 40% of a down payment to get into for a home. And during the Great Depression, that didn't really work for most people, so that's kind of the start, and FDR is the father, really, of the 30-year loan period. Since the loan period was made so large, most banks weren't able to handle that because they couldn't get any money back for a long period of time. So in the 60s, we kind of have the development of these three companies, Fannie Mae, Freddie Mac, and Ginnie Mae, which is really where the modern secondary mortgage market comes in. And a little bit later on I'll explain the 2008 crash, but that adds a significant part of these companies and how they operate today. Just a quick and dirty how it works is that you go to any of your local or national banks to take a loan, but that isn't really the case. What happens is, since most banks can't handle that amount of mortgages, or else they wouldn't have any money to be moving around for new things, so they put it on what's called the secondary mortgage market, and that's where a private, or really those companies that I had mentioned, pick up those loans. So as we know it, those loans aren't really carried by our banks, it's really carried by the secondary mortgage market and those three big companies that I mentioned. From the 60s on, we really didn't have too much movement. A little bit before the 2008 crash, banks were kind of being a little riskier, and they were giving loans to people that shouldn't have them, such as those with low credit scores or those with no down payment. And this led to a huge bubble and burst in 2008. Since then, the banks have tightened their belts a little bit, and they've done a better job of having higher credit scores and more down payments, and they've relaxed a little bit in the last 10 years, but they're still on the same path. The projections of the marketplace were pretty simple, and I got these notes from a congressional kind of study looking at the different options available. Really, the three major options that they have is a public private style, a completely federal, or a more open market private style. Since 2008, the government pretty much went in and took over those three companies that I had mentioned because they're bankrupt at that time, and it's kind of following the idea that the government cannot let those large businesses fail. As I mentioned, since 2008, the government's kind of in charge of those three businesses, saying that for some reason it thinks it can't fail. Kind of just giving my personal opinion on this subject. We're following this trend where government steps in, and I think that's appropriate in some cases, but in cases like this where businesses are failing because of the procedures that the company's putting in, or if the market's not, there to support it, then I think there really shouldn't be anything that the government should do. They should really step back and let the American people, in this case, show what kind of grit and determination comes from when you fail and what you have to do in order to get back up. Thanks for watching, everybody.